also thank the B.S. Abdul Rahman Crescent Institute of Science and Technology for the warm invitation. Let me start sharing my screen now and just let me know if everything is looking okay. Uh, and then I'll get started right away. All right, I think it's sharing my screen. Okay, are you able to see my slide, the first cover slide?
Very clear, sir.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you, Nikhil, madam. Okay, so let me get started. So today I'll be sharing my thoughts on soft skills development. As most of us know, in recent times, this particular area has gained a lot of momentum, primarily because of the much needed expertise in this field, and also it has been driven by the lack of the essential soft skills that we see among the graduating students. So let me quickly share a few takeaways of today's webinar. First of all, we'll try to define what we mean exactly by soft skills. Then we'll see who needs these skills. Is it only students, or do professionals need it? Do academicians need it? Who needs it? Then why should we at all bother to acquire training in soft skills? And why is it really important? Why is it critical? Then I'll also suggest ways of developing soft skills, because soft skills, suddenly you cannot become like an expert overnight. It has to be done carefully, systematically, methodically, and there's a way for doing it. One way is to initiate it in the form of a training, just like we are uh, having this webinar today. And there are many other ways. Then where do we use these skills? Of course we use them in daily life, but where and like how? So I'll talk about that. Then we'll talk about employers perspective, like what they think about soft skills development, and why they think it is critical for any employee's survival in industry, or not just industry, even academia, or if you're with a government organization, wherever you are, it doesn't matter, regardless of where you are. All of us need soft skills. That's why soft skills development is so critical. Then of course I'll share plenty of interesting anecdotes, practical examples, and we'll make it interesting for you. All right, so let me share some background. So what's the basic difference between human communication and communication between like birds, animals, or reptiles? Well, there's a huge difference. Whenever birds signal each other or animals signal each other, those signals are very specific, well defined, and they are limited. It's a very simple system. It's nothing complicated. So, for example, if you go to a forest, you'll see that whenever a tiger is approaching, the birds or the monkeys, they start signaling each other by shouting in a particular way. And then on at other times they communicate with each other using some very specialized sounds, but that's it. There's nothing more to it. They don't have any elaborate system. Of course, even animals and birds, non-humans, they also have some sort of body language, but again those things are limited. And the biggest difference between human communication and communication between animals, birds, reptiles is that human communication is far more complicated and far more sophisticated as compared to communication between non-humans. So, and because it is complicated, we need some specialized training in order to deal with challenging situations that can arise because of a lack of communication, or because of improper communication, or communication that has not been done or initiated in a timely manner. So we'll see all of these things. Now, what happens. I know I have a colleague in Gujarat, and I really like his email footnote. It says as follows: your intelligence quotient or IQ gets you the job, but your emotional quotient or EQ gets you the promotion. It's a very fantastic footnote. What it means is that you may be hired because of your hard skills, but in order to eventually succeed and climb up the ladder, you will have to own a particular set of highly specialized soft skills. And eventually, if you try to go up the ladder and become a leader at any organization, it could be corporate, in industry, in academia, or in any government organization, you will definitely need soft skills. Hard skills will come to your rescue only up to a certain point. Hard skills may help you get the job, they may help you secure employment, but that's it. After that, the soft skills take over. I mean, you still need your hard skills. I'm not saying that that's the end of it. You will need your hard skills throughout your life, but then as you advance in your career, you will also need to get some highly specialized soft skills. Now, why do we need them? Because see, humans interact with each other in a variety of ways. We use specialized skills. It's not just communication, like verbal communication, written communication. We also communicate through body language. Where we look when we speak, do we make eye contact? How are we standing? Like, how do we groom ourselves? Tons of things. All of these are very critical, and these are really necessary for all. It's not just a scenario where soft skills are only required by students or people who are seeking employment. Pretty much every person I know on earth has to use soft skills at some point or on a daily basis. If you don't have the right soft skills with you, you will end up getting in a lot of trouble on a almost a daily basis, because these are especially during these times, because during the pandemic, there's a lot of the people are having a lot of mental health issues. So communication is the key here. So if you communicate your thoughts well to your spouse or your loved ones, it can help, actually it can help safeguard your mental health. So all these skills, soft skills, are really critical during these times. Communication skills, I always talk about communication skills. Many times the root cause of any problem is usually improper communication, or the lack thereof, like complete lack of communication, or communication that is not initiated in a timely manner. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Let me share some history about soft skills. So where did this term originate? Basically, the US Army, United States Army, coined this term around 1968. And then what happened is, in 1972, the US Army Training Manual officially began using this term. So the term was coined around 1968, and US Army started officially using it in 1972. Now the Continental Army Command, it organized a conference in the year 1972, and it used to be known as CONARC. Now I think the name has changed. But that time, when they organized the conference, a tentative definition was made after the conference, or perhaps during the conference. So let's look at the definition from 1972. Soft skills are important job-related skills that involve little or no interaction with machines, and whose application on the job is quite generalized. Now, this is a very kind of generalized definition, a very early stage definition, and later on it got refined, and now we have a slightly better version. But that's the history. That's how it all started. And we may think that the phrase soft skills came into existence like 10 years ago, but that's not the case. It has been in existence since 1972, and the use of soft skills has increased dramatically during recent times. I mean, soft skills everybody always needed even before 1972. Although the term was not coined, people still used soft skills. I'm not saying that they never used soft skills before 1972, but it got official recognition, and it got a definition in 1972, and that's how it all started. All right, so let's see what Oxford University Press has to say. According to Oxford Languages, soft skills are personal attributes that enable someone to interact effectively and harmoniously with other people. Now look at the picture. What's the problem here? It's kind of a funny picture because both of them are listening. So it's funny because nobody's talking and they are expecting to hear something. So that's the funny part. But what makes me really happy is that two people are actually listening. It's a rarity these days. I this is very rare these days because people think that communication is all about oratory and public speaking and how well you talk and how well you deliver webinars. No, it's not that. It's only half the story, or probably it's only one third of the story. I'll tell you later on why that's the case. But just keep this at the let's have this at the back of our mind that listening and speaking are both important, and listening is kind of sometimes more important. I would not say sometimes. Actually, listening is in fact more important than speaking. If you listen well, of course you will speak well. That comes naturally, it comes organically. But that's the definition made by Oxford University Press. Now, the Collins English Dictionary has a slightly different and slightly more advanced definition. According to them, soft skills are desirable qualities for certain forms of employment that do not depend on acquired knowledge. They include common sense, the ability to deal with people, and a positive, flexible attitude. Now, the last part is very important: positive, flexible attitude, because that's how you basically survive in any industry. You could be working for a multinational company, you could be working at a university, or you could be working at a government organization. But you have to have positive attitude. You need to be flexible. You need to know how to deal with people, and of course, all of us need to use our common sense. Now, there are tons and tons and tons and dozens of examples of how people fail to use their soft skills in daily life. And you'll be happy to know that, I actually offer personal training in the area of soft skills development. So if anybody wants to get trained, I'm always ready to offer that. And nowadays this is becoming extremely important, because see, what happens is many people approach me and they say, oh, Nikhil sir, there's a problem at my office, and this person, I cannot deal with this person. What should I do? I'm getting mentally stressed out. I give the person a very practical solution, and it is always very ethical, and I give the person guidelines. They start from all the way from meditation to how to nicely behave and conduct yourself at your workplace. So all those things are there. So if any one of you needs help, I'm just a phone call or email away. All right, let's look at more definitions. Now, let's try to define hard skills as well. Let's look at what the Oxford University Press says. What are hard skills? Because people always ask me, what is the difference between hard skills and soft skills? So in the next slide, we'll also see that. We'll see the difference between hard skills and soft skills. But let's first define hard skills now that we have defined soft skills. So hard skills, according to OUP, they are competencies that employees possess. For example, you could be fluent in Japanese language, you could be fluent in German language, Spanish, French, Italian, whatever, English, and then you could be operating a machine. You could be an engineer. You could be good in designing equipment. You could be a scientist. You could be great in designing new compounds, synthesizing new organic chemistry based compounds. Many of these medicines that we see during this pandemic, the tablets, they have not been designed by physicians. They have been designed by synthetic organic chemists who actually know the reaction mechanism, and they have synthesized those medicines with their hand. So they are actually in that profession, they're skilled in that particular area. So those are all hard skills. Then something as simple as creating an Excel spreadsheet, or typing, driving, whatever, swimming, running. All those are running, of course, if you're like a professional athlete. So then all these are hard skills. So because see now, all of these, whatever I mentioned so far, like having fluency in a language, or designing pharmaceutical grade compounds, all of these fall under one category. It's basically specialized training in dealing with non-human resources. All of these people who are technically trained, they're trained to deal with non-human resources such as laboratory chemicals or equipment, or something similar, typewriters and keyboards, and various other devices. So that's the difference between hard skills and soft skills. I think now you must be getting the idea now. Now, usually, see, hard skills are relatively easy to measure, and you can always quantify. You can always say that I manufactured 25 very interesting lead compounds, and someone else designed 3, 4 really interesting machines last year. So you can actually measure those things. Soft skills, it's not very straightforward, but yes, you can still measure soft skills. There are specialized ways of doing that, and they can also be measured, but hard skills are relatively easy to measure. And of course, they are always associated with a technical qualification, like somebody could be a PhD in organic chemistry, somebody could be an MTech in computer engineering, somebody could be a physician, and somebody could be a physiotherapist, and so forth and so on. um, People are managers, so they have an MBA degree. So all these are qualifications, technical qualifications. So technical qualifications will give you the necessary hard skills, whereas soft skills, you have to keep your eyes and ears open. You have to keep basically all your senses open, and you have to keep your mind open, most importantly. And then you will easily gain a lot of expertise in the area of soft skills. And that's how you go about initiating this process, namely soft skills development. Now, there has been a recent emphasis, on soft skills development, and as compared to hard skills, even people from corporate, where I work, and I've also been associated with academia. I have worked for a multinational technical communications firm in Mumbai. All of them, every single entity I have come across, every person has told me that nowadays when we recruit new candidates, and I'm sure the students are listening to this very carefully, we pay special attention to their soft skills, how they conduct themselves during the interview, how they answer the question. When they answer the question, where are they looking? How much is the eye contact? What is their body language? Are they sitting erect, or are they sitting in a relaxed manner? All of those things are important. And I'll share a very interesting example. Sometimes you should not be excessively polite at the wrong place. Now, one very interesting example that I think Niket madam shared with me. A person came in for an interview, and Niket madam and me, both of were really we found this very funny and interesting. I mean, I was not there at that time, but she told me about it. Now, the person, before entering the interview room, the person asked whether he should remove his chappals and then, or probably he was wearing his shoes, whether he should remove his shoes and then come inside. And it was quite unusual. Like, whoever removes shoes and goes into the interview room? I have never seen a single example. And unless, of course, the interview is conducted in a place of worship. If it's an interview for a priest or a panditji, or a some other religious leader, then I can understand clearly. There are different protocols, but not for a regular interview. So what I'm trying to say is that you should have the soft skills, but you shouldn't. You have to use the right things at the right time and the right place. Otherwise, it creates a lot of humor, and it's not bad idea to create humor, but then you also need to get the job. So you have to use those skills and whatever you have learned in the right manner. All right, so let's quickly make a comparison. Soft skills and hard skills, they teach you, basically soft skills teach you how to deal with human resources. Hard skills, they teach you how to deal with non-human resources. We already saw that in the definition. Then both of them, what is the common thing between both of these skills? They can both be acquired through training. It is a myth that soft skills cannot be acquired through training. No, not at all. People who completely lacked soft skills after they attend some specialized training sessions, they can also I have seen them grow, and they actually imbibe the required soft skills, so it's not a challenge at all, and not anymore. And okay, and the third one, soft skills really become important as you advance in your career. That's very important. Hard skills, yes, they can get you the job, definitely, but today nowadays they perhaps can't even get you the job, because you also need some very specialized soft skills. One very recent soft skill that was added to the list of existing soft skills, let me tell you, the name is remote team management. Because nowadays many managers are managing their teams remotely, so remote team management has now been officially added to the list of soft skills. You should be able to manage a team remotely, and how do you do that? So it's a very specialized skill, and many people, they are asking managers about it. They are asking them during interviews, like, do you have any experience managing a team remotely? Can you tell us more about that? All those things are happening. So we have to ensure that we are, we gain the necessary expertise in these areas. We should not only be good in our technical field, we should have the right hard skills, but we should also have the necessary soft skills. All right, let's take some examples. Now, I don't even need to say anything here. Can you clearly see what's happening? Meanwhile, I'll just I'll just have a sip of water. All right, can you see what's happening? Is the person is yelling at an employee and saying that you are supposed to leave at 6:30, and at 6:10 you have already wrapped up. It's not even 6:10, and he's like angry, and you're supposed to leave at 6:30. Well, this is an example of how you should never conduct yourself. Never yell at any person, no matter how wrong the person is. There is a sophisticated way of dealing with people. The right way of saying it is, call the person. First of all, don't do it publicly. If you want to reprimand anybody, you have to do it in private. Call the person to your room, then say, first of all, start with a smile. Just say that, see, as per the official requirements of the organization, your official work hours are whatever, 10:30, 11:30, whatever is the time, to 6:30. And so that's why we would really appreciate if you could continue your work till 6:30, and then you can leave, and then you can share some practical reasons why you want him to stay till 6:30. Like, for example, some clients usually call after their office gets over, and they call between 6 and 6:30. At that time, if you're not there, who will answer their queries? Who will address their questions? It's a big problem for us. You are such a qualified individual. It's very hard to find a person like you. And, that's why we really wish that you should be there. If you say it this way, the person will never leave before 6:30. I guarantee. But if you yell at the person, you know what will happen? The person will stay till 6:30, but he will only be there, he or she will only be there physically. The person will mentally be somewhere else. He'll be in a restaurant, he'll be watching a movie, or he'll be at all different places. So never yell at people. It just spoils the relationship, and it creates a very negative environment. Just use diplomacy, talk politely, address the exact problem by stating what are the issues when a person does something, and then come up with a fantastic practical solution. The people who do this get appreciated a lot. People who yell at other people never get appreciated. I have never seen one example where people who yell at others got appreciated. There are plenty of examples of CEOs of Forbes listed companies yelling at people. Well, it's still unprofessional. I don't care if they're a CEO of a Forbes listed company. If they don't conduct themselves well, that's unprofessional. It's not at all ethical, and that's not how it should be. All right. So next example. Now, can you see what's happening here? I think there's an issue between the lady and the gentleman, and somebody is trying to say something, and probably the other person is not agreeing with the person, and then look at the side effect. Look at all those people, they are so kind of feeling awkward and embarrassed, because I think this is happening at a like before a meeting or after a meeting. It's a quite common scenario. And certain sometimes there are people who never get along at certain workplaces, and then this creates an extremely negative environment for everybody else. So these things should be avoided. So now what should these two people do? What should the lady and the gentleman do? First of all, if you have any issues, resolve them peacefully. Go talk to each other in a room. If you want, seek help from HR. I know Nikhil madam has solved like literally dozens and dozens and dozens of such issues. She's very experienced in this area. She's also an expert in politics at workplace organizational politics. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you are not able to settle things peacefully, settle down these things peacefully yourself, seek help from professionals, human resources professionals, HR. They are there for a reason. So you have to consult HR. You have to really ensure proper that the issue is resolved appropriately in a timely manner, so that you can start living peacefully, and you can also let others live peacefully. Because see, look at those poor guys. Unnecessarily their whole day is getting spoiled, right? Meetings usually are there in the morning, so your whole day is spoiled because of these negative attitudes. So moral of the story is, never get into such a these kind of interactions. Make sure you solve these things peacefully, and if not, seek help from professionals. Okay, one more thing that I want to stress here, or maybe I'll stress it in the next slide. All right. So this is yet another common example: the always angry boss. He's so well dressed, wearing a nice red tie. He's also wearing an expensive, jacket, and I guess there's a expensive shirt, and then he's sitting on his computer. Clearly, he's angry on someone. And then look at the effect it has on employees. Many employees, after they work with such bosses who are like angry on a daily basis, they may eventually develop type 2 diabetes. They may eventually develop blood pressure. They may eventually get heart attack or even brain stroke. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you're a boss, never ever yell at your employees. Give respect to employees. If you want to earn respect, you have to give respect. If you want to earn love, you have to give love. It's a give and take relationship. So if you want them to do work for you efficiently, you have to talk to them politely. So if you are a manager, if you are a PhD advisor, I don't know who you are, but whenever you are in a position of authority, you have to be very careful when speaking. Well, not just position of authority. Even if you are an employee, like you're a freshly recruited candidate, you still have to be very polite. Nobody on earth deserves to be insulted. Uh, you know, Even I'll give you an extreme example. When cops from the United States, they arrest a convict, even then, you know how they talk to the convict? They say, sir, we are putting handcuffs on you, we are arresting you. Anything you say after this can be held against you in a court of law, and you need to come with me to the police station. So they talk very politely with the person. They put him in the police car and take him to the police station. Next day he goes to the court. The court judge says, okay, you are going to be jailed for next 5 years. The police politely take him, put him in jail. That's it. There is no yelling, nothing. There are instances where police have been involved in police brutality. They have even killed people. They have spoken badly to them. That's there. But the general protocol is that even if you arrest anyone, it has to be done with certain guidelines in mind. Those are called as the standard operating procedures for the police force. So that's an extreme example. But in daily life, I don't think we deal with criminals and convicts. Definitely not. We deal with reasonable people. We deal with good people who may make a mistake once in a while, but that's okay. Everybody makes mistake. This crazy angry boss who thinks he has the right to get angry, he himself is going to make mistakes at some point. I'm sure he must be making. I have yet to see a person who has not made a mistake. Even myself, nobody on earth, we are not perfect. Everybody is bound to make mistakes at some point. We can try our best to avoid them. But there's a difference between a criminal mindset and a mistake. Mistake is something that you do unintentionally, whereas a criminal mindset, that's a different story. You do something intentionally, but that's a different thing. We are not dealing with that right now, because the lecture is not on criminal law, it's on soft skills development. All right, so coming back to the point, if you have such a situation at your workplace, you need to try to resolve it. If not, and if it's spoiling your mental health, I think it's time to start looking for a new job, or at least do something about it. I would not say start suddenly looking for a new job. Try your best, give it your best shot. Try your best to resolve the issues, to resolve the issue using various techniques. Use diplomacy, seek help from HR, do whatever you can in your capacity, try to resolve it. But if it doesn't get resolved, it means that it's time to move on. Nobody deserves to be insulted. We all deserve a very happy and fulfilling life. All right, so these are the soft skills. These are the soft skills we are going to pay attention on today. So we'll be focusing on today. So first of all, I have highlighted effective communication in red, because that is at the source of all kinds of soft skills. If you are a good communicator, 95% of the work is done. If you are a bad communicator, even if you are the biggest scientist in the world, even if you are the a top achiever with really amazing hard skills, you will not get promoted significantly, or you will not get any major leadership position unless and until you are an effective communicator. And people used to give excuses, like, somebody used to say, I did my schooling from a non-English medium school, that's why I don't have soft skills. I say, come on, that's not an excuse. I myself i myself have many friends who coming from villages. They never studied in English medium schools, they studied in a Marathi medium schools, yet today they speak impeccable English. Their communication skills are massively mind boggling. So that's possible. How did they make it possible? They just took the right effort. It's not difficult at all. See, when I was in the United States, I was doing my PhD. I used to see many people from many Asian countries. They used to struggle while talking to their PhD advisor. So in the first year, they decided to take some special courses in English. And you don't even need to take any courses nowadays. It's everything is there on YouTube. You just read the newspaper, watch the TV, listen to read the radio. If you do that, you can easily gain the required soft skills. And nowadays you also have lots of resources like Coursera, Udemy. So it's not that difficult to get the right type of communication skills. All right. So communication skills are really central to many other soft skills, and they play a very critical role. Now let's move on to the next category: critical analysis. We all need to do critical analysis at work. There are so many things that we do at work every day. It could be about an experiment, it could be about a project, it could be about hiring new people, it could be about employee retention. All of these areas, and not just these, many more, require critical thinking. So that is an essential soft skill. Even if you are a trained scientist, physician, engineer, management expert, if you don't think critically, your degree is not of much use. So critical analysis is something that all of us need to do, and we have to analyze on a daily basis. Then you have to have some leadership skills. No matter where you are, you need leadership skills. And in order to be an effective leader, of course, you have to be an effective communicator first. I have yet to see a leader who cannot communicate. All great leaders are always fantastic communicators, and all fantastic communicators are always great listeners. Very important. The last part of the sentence is very important. All great leaders are always fantastic listeners, because leaders always listen to what their employees are saying. Leaders always listen to what their clients are saying. They listen to feedback. They're open to feedback. They have open minds. They have open ears. They have open eyes. And that's why they are great leaders. And that's why we need to have this skill set with us. We need to be good leaders. If you're a good leader, you can do so many things. You can be a good boss. You can be a great person at home. In your house you can do so many nice things. You can communicate well with lots of friends, family members, and keep the environment nice and friendly, and encourage a lot of other things. So yeah, it's very important to be a leader. Even if you are not a manager at your workplace, I'm sure you are a leader at least somewhere, if not at your workplace. And that's where you need these skills. Everybody is a leader at least somewhere. I have yet to see a person who is not a leader anywhere. I'm sure somewhere or the other, at some, if not today, at some point in your life, you'll be a leader somewhere. Maybe in your house, maybe among a group of friends, somewhere, but you still need these skills. Positivity is very important. Now, if you're working in a super negative environment, just like I said, it can take a toll on your health. So that's why if you're a manager, or even if you're not a manager, you have to ensure that you provide a positive environment to your colleagues. Teamwork is very critical, once again. Now see, all great things that happen, a single person cannot do too many great things. You always need, unless of course you are Einstein or someone else, but most people need help from others. So that's where teamwork comes into picture. So teamwork plays a really critical role, and we have to understand that in order to build a team, in order to make this particular group sustainable and really productive, you have to communicate among yourselves very efficiently and in a very sophisticated manner. So again, once again, communication skills come into picture here as well. So you'll see each of these subcategories, almost every other category is related to effective communication. Work ethic. Now, work ethic, again, you have to be honest, you have to ensure compliance with the standard industry practices, and you have to ensure that you voice your opinion when you see something illegal or wrong. So, there's a saying I had once seen on when I was standing for a train in Chicago. There was a notice saying, if you see something, say something. So, what does it mean? If you see something, say something. Means it is your moral duty to report to the right authority. Anything that you see, uh, so something that you see that's not in the right framework or something that's illegal. It is your right to report it to the right authority, and it is I mean, not your right. It is your duty to report it to the right person. Because if you fail to do this duty, then it would be tantamount to being unethical, because by merely ignoring something illegal, you are in fact helping it grow further. So you are helping the cancer grow further, you are helping the cancer grow bigger. So in order to prevent that, we must all ensure compliance with the standard industry practices, and we have to ensure compliance with work ethics. Of course, I'll be talking on work ethics in details on Saturday during my other webinar on ethics in research, training, and business. And last one, I'll also touch upon a few other miscellaneous points, and these are some miscellaneous soft skills, but nevertheless they are still important, because and just like I said, this list of soft skills is not like a fixed list. Depending on how technology evolves, depending on how other things evolve, a few skills could be added in the next few years. Just like I said, remote team management, this is a newly added soft skill. So likewise, there could be other skills that could be added in the next few years. All right, now let me highlight something. Back in 2017, I was instrumental in facilitating the international conference on, engineering education. So, transformations in engineering education, ICTIE, is International Conference on Transformations in Engineering Education. So during that conference, like we, not just during, like before that conference, when we interacted with some employers, They told us that today's engineers, today's graduate students, many of, not just engineers, many students from across disciplines, they lack the required soft skills. And that's why when we hire them, we have to spend a lot of time, we have to spend a lot of energy in training them. Why don't you as in universities, why don't you take the initiative and launch things at the university level? So what the employers were pointing at is, they were pointing at a severe lack of training at the institutional level when it comes to soft skills development. Many institutes, even today, they hardly offer any training in soft skills development. I'm really glad that BS Abdul Rahman Crescent Institute of Science and Technology has taken this initiative, and I'm really thankful to them that they are organizing this webinar, because this kind of a training is really critical, and this is important for everybody's survival during these times. So coming back to the point, yes, this is what they had mentioned during the conference, and then the entire conference was based on transformations in education and how we can develop certain skill sets, and of course soft skills, and other things. And then employers also said that soft skills deficiency leads to lower employability. So what happens is, let's say there are 5 students. Now recently, I myself had posted an advertisement. 206 people applied for the position. Then I saw the hard skills and everything, and then I interviewed some people, and out of them, I was barely able to identify like less than 10 people who had the right soft skills. And then till date, I have found only like one candidate so far who is kind of okay in several areas, probably one or two. But yeah, see how serious this is. When 200 people apply, I'm at least we should have found like 50, 60, na? But no, I found only like less than 5, probably one or two. So that's what I'm saying. In order to get employment, and it's kind of a little bit challenging to get employment during this pandemic, you really need to be good in many of these soft skills. Because even if you are working remotely, still there is a chance for conflict. There is a chance for misunderstanding. It's not that misunderstandings don't happen when you are working remotely. In fact, they happen more if you are working remotely, because when you are amne samne, you can at least try to resolve. But if you say something angrily on email or WhatsApp, and then people like block each other, those things happen at many places. So don't get into all those areas. Like let's maintain our peace and tranquility, and for those reasons, soft skills are important. Okay, moving on to the next point. What's the irony? The irony is, just like I said, educational institutes are still not focusing on soft skills development. And meanwhile, in places like, in cities like Bangalore, if you just Google, you'll see that these business schools, sorry, finishing schools, they are doing a huge business. It's like a huge multi-crore business, or probably, I don't know, maybe perhaps even multi-million dollar. I don't know. We'll have to see. But at least it's a booming business in many of these cities. So what are these finishing schools? Finishing schools basically teach you what you did not learn at your regular school. That's the basic definition. So what do you generally not learn at your school or institute or college? I'm not saying all places. Many of the good institutes like your institute, they impart training. So I'm happy about that. But there are some other institutes, not necessarily your institute, many other institutes who do not impart the training. And I'm really happy that BS Abdul Rahman Crescent Institute of Science and Technology has been imparting this training for years. I've been visiting physically, as well as I've been dealing with webinars. I'm really thankful to Nikhil Madam and all the other stakeholders that they are taking this initiative. That's a great thing to do. So similarly, if other institutes also initiate these things, that would be really ideal, because that would help students get the right job opportunity, and they'll really find employment during these challenging times. All right, very important skill. Number 1, listening skills. There's a reason why भगवान ने हमें 2 कान दिए हैं और 1 मुंह दिया है. There is a reason why God has given us 2 ears but only one mouth. Why? Because he or she wants to, wants us to listen more and speak less. But what happens is people speak more and listen less. Now you'll say, how can you say that? You yourself are talking right now. But see, that's a different scenario. I have listened to lots and lots and lots and lots of people. I've listened to CEOs, I've listened to Nobel laureates, I've listened to so many global experts from the United States, India, Europe, Australia. And then after listening to dozens of people, today I'm in a position to talk. Why? Because I use both of my ears. That's why I'm able to talk. If I had never bothered to use my ears or eyes or other sensory organs, I would never have been able to speak today. So that's at the core. Listening skills are at the core of communication skills. And that's why we have 2 ears and one mouth. Now, average people, what do? As soon as somebody says something, they will plan a reply. They will say, अब ये ऐसा बोला है तो मैं अभी इसका बदला कैसे लूंगा? How will I take revenge? अभी इस बार नहीं तो अगले बार लूंगा. If not this time, next time let me take the revenge. So how should I react? The person starts planning. Then if they start doing that plan every day, they get type 2 diabetes, they get blood pressure, they die of cancer, so many things. So you never ever listen to react. If you are an average person, you will listen to react, but I'm sure none of us are average. So I don't think any of us listen to react. So what do the intelligent people do? Intelligent people thoda one step higher rehte. They listen to respond, because वो एक कहावत है ना, don't react, respond. So what do? Intelligent people, they say we respond in a sophisticated manner. But that also is not sufficient. You have to listen to understand. You have to listen to understand first. What is the person trying to communicate? Is the person trying to communicate what he or she is saying? Or by looking at the person's body language, do you think that the person is trying to say something else as well? This is what you have to try to understand. And this is where soft skills come into picture. Don't just listen at what the person is saying. Try to understand. Look at the body language. Where is the person looking? Is the person looking at you? Is the person shaking? Is the person looking down? Is the person kind of apparently lying? All those things are there. So you have to listen carefully. And then once you lend an ear, then you'll be in a position to express yourselves. And that's when you start communicating. Communication is essentially a two-way process. You have to listen and you have to express. Most people are into the business of impressing others. Don't do that. When you express yourself sufficiently, don't worry about impressing. People will feel overjoyed. You don't have to worry about that. Great orators, just like I said, are fantastic listeners. And there's a famous anecdote. Let me share a story. I had once attended a seminar, and the speaker spoke so well that one of the audience members actually got up from his chair. He went to the speaker and said, Sir, please tell me, how do you manage to speak so well? What is your secret? So, the speaker just smiled at the person. The speaker smiled at the person and said, see, what's my secret? Said, yes, sir, tell me, what's your secret? He said, I use both of my ears really well. I listen to people really well, and that's why today I'm in a position to speak well. Today I'm in a position to speak well, and today many people are listening to me because I listen to people so far, and I'll continue listening to people. I have been listening to people so far. I still listen to people, and I will continue listening to people in order to maintain my specialization. I'm a good orator, I know that, but that's essentially because I listen well. That was his reply. And then he said, again with a smile, so that's my secret. So the boy really got impressed, and ever since that day, he started listening carefully, I think, I guess. All right. Now, one very critical aspect is a very important soft skill, presentation. Now, you have to present yourself very well. Now, there's a very famous joke on this. If you present well, you can even sell refrigerators to Eskimos. Don't try doing that, because that is like unethical marketing. You don't want to do that. What I'm trying to say is, I mean, jokes apart, if you present well, you'll be able to sell your idea. And don't just sell fake ideas. You know, I've done a lot of things in the area of marketing, digital marketing. We never do anything unethically. We never do any false advertisements. We never, make any fake promises. Whatever we do, it is done in an ethical manner. So now, first point, many technically qualified people, you could be a scientist, an engineer, any professional, a manager, they're not able to communicate their great things, discoveries, inventions, innovations, whatever. They're not able to do it. Why? Because they never took the effort to own the right skill set. So it is really up to the person. If the person decides, the person can get the right skill set within no time. Just like I said before, a friend of mine who never went to an English medium school now speaks great English because he took the right effort. He's from a village, by the way. He did his PhD from Germany, and he also published in thesis in German language. So no excuses. Of course, we need to keep our eyes and ears open to powerful presentation techniques. Now, whenever you see that a person is delivering a good talk, you have to understand, just look at the technique the person is using, and can you try to follow a similar technique? I'm not saying copy the person. You should have your own personality and you should develop your own style. But at least try to see how the person is delivering, and why is the person's webinar or seminar or workshop or talk so interesting. What is it that the person is bringing to the table? What value addition is he or she doing? So you have to listen carefully, you have to see carefully, and that's how you can become powerful presenters. Now, lack of resources is definitely not an excuse anymore, because see, just like I said, if you feel that you need some training in the area of presentations, how to present well, there are tons of resources. By the way, I prepared my entire presentation for today using canva.com. Canva, of course I use the premium version because I use it for my work related stuff. But nevertheless, it's a very good website, and on canva.com you can find plenty of templates for PowerPoint presentations. Now, this was not a template. I built the template from scratch. I dragged each individual element and made it. So nothing is ready-made. I did it from scratch. So, but what I'm trying to say here is that there are various ways of doing it. You just visit canva.com, try to see what they have to offer, then try to build something based on that. Go to Coursera, go to Udemy. There are plenty of courses on how to be a good presenter. All right. So lack of resources is not an excuse. They are so see, what are the immediate effects, positive effects of this? You see, if you're a good presenter, you can negotiate really well. Then there is something called as the science of persuasion. Just go to YouTube today and then just Google, just search for this phrase, the science of persuasion. In that video, the person has really explained well what is the science behind persuasion. Why do people buy certain products and services? Why are certain businesses more successful than others? Because the way they present their product or service is so powerful and so compelling. It is really so amazing that people end up, it is so mind-boggling that people end up buying their product or service. So what is it that they do differently? It has been nicely mentioned in that video, the science of persuasion. I'll just give a quick example. Consensus. What is consensus? Consensus is when a lot of people agree to something. So in an advertisement, if you see 10 people using a product, you will be definitely motivated to buy that product, right? So that is consensus. So similarly, there are many other areas that the person has covered. So all of this falls again under the branch of soft skills, and then very specifically, it falls under the subcategory of presentation. So if you're presenting well, you will sell your stuff, you will negotiate well, you will end up getting a lot of stuff, and you can market yourself well. It's a highly valued soft skill these days. Even if you're a scientist, you should be able to market yourself well. And once again, I'm not talking about fake things. I'm talking about ethical things. Even if you're writing a grant, if you don't present the grant well, if you don't write it in the right format, if you don't follow the right guidelines, you will never get your grant approved. If you are presenting a proposal, if you are making a very great invention but a very sloppy presentation, a horrible presentation, then you will never get the grant. So regardless of your field, you have to have the right presentation skills with you. If not, just like I said, you have to try to gain expertise in that area using the resources that I just mentioned. And once again, if anybody of you has any questions and need help, I'm just an email or phone call away, and you can let me know. All right. Engaging communication, this is very important. Now, what is engaging communication? Of course, just like I said, listening skills always top the list, but there are always other things. Like, for example, let me share a story with you. Back at Mumbai, when I was back in Mumbai, when I was working at this technical communications firm, it was a multinational company. Somebody mentioned to me that nowadays storytelling is in business. So what is storytelling? So today, if you go to YouTube and try to find something on a particular topic, if you see an animation in which there is a story, कि आज सुबह Jacob उठा, उसने घड़ी में देखा. So Jacob got up today morning. In his watch, he saw that it was 8:30. He was not able to do something, and then using our product, he did something, and that's how you should also do it. If you tell this story, people really find it to be very impressive. That's why they say you should always include some stories in your presentation. You should always include anecdotes, funny incidences. These things keep your audience engaged. These things keep your target audience engaged, and they can actually end up subscribing to your YouTube channel. They can end up liking your things on social media, or they can end up buying your products or services, or they can end up writing a good review for you. So for all of these, you need to be a good storyteller. And the story, once again, I have to stress this, literally dozens of times. Don't share fake stories. Share real stories. Let your stories be real, realistic, real, and not fake. Genuine. They should be genuine. That's when people will start getting attracted towards your products or services. Now, some other highly valued skills, like you should be able to draft high quality technical reports. They could be grant proposals, manuscripts, even some initial drafts of patent applications, if not the entire application, at least the initial draft, all of those things. So you can gain the expertise in this area. I myself, when I had organized a patent drafting workshop, I sat there and I myself kind of made an attempt to draft the initial version of a tiny patent application. So anybody can do that. You can organize a patent drafting workshop at your institute. So it's essentially, it's a way of, it's a specialized way of communicating. Now, you'll always see some overlaps, between, various skill sets, but that's okay. I mean, the long story short, the message that I'm trying to bring home here is that get all of these skills, whatever you require. Now, do you speak in such a way that people look forward to listen to you? See, when you listen to understand, when you try to understand people when they are talking to you, you will end up speaking in such a way that you will end up impressing the people. So don't worry about impressing. If you listen to understand and speak to express, you will end up impressing. Listen to understand, speak to express, and there you go. You will impress people. But if you do it the other way around, like if you speak to impress and hardly listen to people, then you will never achieve your target. All right, last point. Do you pay sufficient attention to your body language while communicating your thoughts? So even now, I am not visible to you, but even then, I am using both of my hands, because it's only when I use both of my hands that I deliver the right expression and in the right way. So you may not be able to see me, but I'm still using my hands at this end. Yeah, I'm still using my body language, because that's how the pitch and the delivery of my presentation is hopefully I hope it's effective. And I shouldn't be saying that, but long story short, what I'm trying to say here is that use your body language and use it effectively. Not so much when you are not visible, Of course, you can still use it, but definitely when you are visible. Like, I'll give an example. Somebody came to my office and for an interview, I started interviewing the person. As soon as the person sat in the chair, I noticed that the spine was not erect. The person was like bending down and looking at his shoes and whether they are polished or not. I don't know what the person was checking, something on the floor probably. But I was like, I was interviewing the person. Person was answering and looking down. Like, who does that? When you answer, you have to maintain the right posture. You have to sit erect, smile, answer confidently, look into the eyes of the person. Now, again, when I say look into the eyes of the person, don't stare at the person. Like, there was one very scary person who came into my office, and somebody had told the person that you should make eye contact. The person was constantly looking at me, and I was like scared. Why is this person staring at me? Like, I was getting creeped out. So, also don't do that. Don't stare at anybody. You have to maintain eye contact, then look somewhere else for a few seconds, then again maintain eye contact, then again look somewhere. Don't look at a stretch at the person. The person will, get a heart attack, if it's a very delicate person. I mean, definitely not me, but somebody else. So don't do that. Don't stare at people. Maintain proper eye contact. All right. So, and the eye contact is only one part of body language. There are many other things. Like, if you're sitting, how you should sit. If you're standing, how you should talk. See, there are plenty of books written on body language. You can just buy any. There are plenty of bestsellers. Just, or you can order them online on Amazon. You can even take courses on body language. There are plenty of ways of doing that. Even if you casually go search on YouTube, you'll find plenty of good resources. All right, critical analysis. Now, first of all, are you really creative? Are you flexible? Are you always eager to learn more? Now, let me share something interesting with you. But first of all, let's see what is Kaizen. Kaizen is a Japanese word. What it means is constant learning and continuous improvement. So, if a person stops learning, he or she becomes an intellectually dead person. Let me share a famous anecdote. In Gujarat, when I was working as the associate director at Ark University, I was leading the PhD program. I was in charge of their PhD program, and I once ended up inviting Dr. Ada Yonath, a Nobel laureate from Israel, who had been visiting a nearby institute. I requested her to come to my institute to deliver a seminar and to inaugurate the research center. She happily agreed. And when she came and she delivered her seminar, everybody was like really impressed. And you know what she said? She was a Nobel laureate. She was the top achiever. But you know what she said? She showed an image of Mount Everest. There were two mountains in that image. I still remember. Both of them were covered with snow. One peak was higher than the other. She showed two images. In the first image, there were some clouds and only one mountain was visible. So she said, when I got the Nobel Prize, I thought that I was at the peak of my career. When I got the Nobel Prize, I thought that I was at the peak of my career. But then in the next slide, she showed that the cloud had stopped blocking the other mountain peak. And the other mountain peak was higher than the first mountain peak. So she said that today, this is my position. I want to climb that other peak that is taller than this peak. Look at what she said. She was a Nobel laureate. She could have easily said, she could have hidden the other slide and said, I'm a Nobel laureate. I'm at the top of the world. You should all listen to me. But no, she didn't say that. Excuse me. She said that I'm a constant learner. I still need to learn a few things. And I would like to go on the top of that other mountain. So this is what is Kaizen. If a Nobel laureate says that, all of us should definitely say that. All of us should be constantly learning new things. A person, no matter how big he or she is, when a person stops learning, that's the end of his or her career. That's the end of his or her progress. Now, this is one more very important thing. Nobel laureate Alan Heeger, I still have his USB with me. He had sent his USB when I had invited him for delivering, an e-keynote speech, like an electronic pre-recorded keynote address. So he had saved it on a USB and he had mailed it to me. So I played it during a conference. And during that time, this is what he said: cherish creativity, be bold, and have the audacity to seek to discover. What does that mean? We have to be all very creative, and in order to be creative, we have to think critically. We have to think what are the most important things, and that's when we can be creative. We have to be bold, because see, unless you take certain calculated risks, you cannot really achieve anything. If you are always in your comfort zone, you will rarely achieve anything. So you have to always take risks. I'm not saying weird risks. Like somebody said that I once took a risk. Like I said, yeah, what risk did you take? I consumed ethyl alcohol and started driving a car. And I did not meet with an accident. I said, no, that's a horrible risk. That's not a calculated risk. In fact, it is illegal. You cannot drink and drive a car. So, I mean, it happened in the United States. Also, there it is illegal to drink and drive. But what I'm trying to say here is take calculated and meaningful risks that do not endanger yourself or others, but risks which may give you benefits. Like, for example, trying a certain set of expensive experiments. You may end up spending thousands of dollars and you may not, in fact, get anything, but at least you will know that there is nothing at that end. And in order to know that, you'll still have to invest money. So that is still a calculated risk, and it's a win-win situation. See, in any experiment, it is always like that. You design an experiment, you put in the grant money, and you get to know certain things. It's always a win-win situation, because either you know that it is happening or you know that it's never happening. Either way, you can always make a story out of it and build a paper on that. You can say that we started with this, but then we found that this is not the case. Then when we moved our attention to another area, and now this is what we got. So in order to get that hidden path, or in order to discover that hidden treasure, you have to first take a risk, and then start from there, and then slowly and steadily you will get some benefits. Definitely you will get benefits down the line. All right, now, do you enjoy problem solving? This is a very this is a very highly valued skill in industry, anywhere, not just industry. They love problem solvers. Many people, as soon as they see a problem, they get demotivated. But there are many people, including myself and others, as soon as I see a problem, I get excited, because I want to be the first to solve that problem. As soon as I see a problem, of course, it should be within my domain of knowledge. It should be within my area of expertise. And sometimes, even when it is outside my area of expertise, I can still make an attempt. Like, for example, when I was hired initially at Tiny Tube Australia, the advertisement was for a manager, but they during the hiring process, they said that no, you will make you the director. So they made me the director of marketing. Now, do I have an MBA? No, I don't have an MBA. Do I have even the basic knowledge about digital marketing? I didn't, but before the interview, I made it a point to get the knowledge. Where did I get that knowledge? When I was working at my previous employer in the MNC, I got all the necessary knowledge in digital marketing. And because I have my own YouTube channel, I also got some knowledge from there. I had also, meanwhile, volunteered for a cultural organization whenever I was there in Boston. That time also I got some insights in this area, namely digital marketing. And that's how they hired me. So I have a PhD in biochemistry, but they hired me as the director of digital marketing. These two areas are not related, but still they hired me. Why? Because I decided to be a problem solver. What was the problem? The problem was that I wanted to get some insights in digital marketing. What was the solution? I took effort and I gained a lot of insight, and that's how they hired me. So this is an actual example. Are you open to change? I was. I switched from biochemistry to digital marketing. I mean, I still love biochemistry. I definitely deliver talks on that, and I did a lot of research. It is still getting cited, but I'm open to change. I like learning new things all the time, and not just me. There are tons of other people, dozens and hundreds and thousands of people who love and enjoy learning new things. You have to be innovative. You must always think outside the box. Now, whenever people are given a particular problem, they say that there are only fixed ways of approaching it. No, you can use your logic. And by the way, you should love using your logic. if you use your logic and apply your specialized skills, you will end up finding lots and lots of solutions to the same problem. Every problem may in fact have more than one solution. Then you have to pick up the best possible solution. You have to you have to identify and pick up and go with the best possible solution. But in order to do that, you have to first of all be a critical thinker, and that's why this skill is of great value. All right, leadership. Now you have to find fixes to tough situations. We know, you come across tough situations so many times in life. You should know how to delegate. So let's say you're a manager and you don't know how to delegate because you don't know what are the skill sets of your team members. Then you will end up delegating the wrong thing to the wrong person. For example, if I'm working as a manager of a content team, I cannot delegate a job related to design to a person who is very good in content writing, or vice versa. I need to know that person X is good in content writing, so I have to give that work to that person. I have to delegate that work only to that person. So as a leader or a manager, I need to know that to whom I should delegate. I should know that. Then true leaders reprimand in private and appreciate in public. This is very important. What is the meaning of reprimand? Reprimand is nothing but giving feedback. So ideally, I wouldn't even say reprimand. I would say talk to the person, just like I said in my very first example. Talk to the person politely. Try to understand what's the problem. Try to understand why the person is not able to work with full efficiency. Then try to suggest a solution. Smile often. Let the person win your confidence, and then put some trust into that person. Once you smile and put trust into the person and appreciate the person even 5%, even for 5% of his work, the person may in fact delivering 105% the very next month. It's that powerful. You don't know how powerful. I mean, I'm sure many of you know the power of appreciation. It is really immense. If you appreciate a person, I'm not saying appreciate in a fake manner, but out of whatever 190, let's say a person has 95 bad qualities, the person will have at least 5 good qualities. Can you go ahead and appreciate those 5 good qualities first and then give feedback based on the other remaining qualities? The person will be so receptive that next month you'll suddenly see that the person now has 95% great qualities and 5% are kind of the person is still evolving. So what I'm trying to say here is, give feedback always in private. Don't insult people during group meetings. Never try to take revenge during meetings. Meetings are places where you have intellectual conversations. They are not war zones. Yeah, exactly. Many of you will actually laugh at this statement, but yes, I have to say this, unfortunately, because meetings, many people consider that meetings are war zones, that there is World War III about to happen today during the Monday meeting at 9 o'clock. Don't do it that way. I myself, when I was a leader, I used to organize really friendly meetings. I used to tell people, you can bring in your coffee. I used to myself go in with a cup of coffee. I used to drink coffee and I used to crack jokes, have a nice meeting, and I used to wrap up my meeting in half an hour. One of my colleagues used to extend the meetings to 90 minutes. I once told everybody that let's have a brief meeting today. I was the manager. I said, we'll have a brief meeting today. And we actually finished in half an hour. And the people were so happy. They said that, Nikhil, we look forward to the next meeting. Your meetings are so interesting. We never get bored. You always tell so many jokes and so many interesting things and encourage us and motivate us and appreciate us. Let's have the meeting. When is the next meeting? They actually said that to me. Why? Because my meetings were efficient. They were short, to the point. And I never, even today, I don't like to drag meetings on and on and on and on. You have to communicate your thoughts quickly and move on. Okay, next point. Leadership and decision making go hand in hand. Have you seen the movie Catch Me If You Can? I think it's directed by Steven Spielberg, the same director who directed the movie Jurassic Park, I guess. In that movie, they have shown a con man. I think his name is John Abagnale, and he gets a fake degree from Harvard University. He gets a fake degree, a surgeon's degree. On the degree certificate, it says that he's a surgeon. and he actually goes and into the surgery room, and in the surgery room, then he lands in trouble because the doctor standing on his left asks him, do you think this is the right thing I'm doing? So what he does is, he's a con man. So what he does is, he uses his skill, and then he says to the doctor on his left, do you think what the doctor on my right, the doctor on my left, whatever he's saying, do you concur with him? Do you agree with him? The person says, oh, yes, I think he's right. Okay, then let's do that. So I know this is a very bad example. This is a very terrible example, and forgive me for that. It's a part of a movie. Don't take it too seriously. But what I'm trying to say here is, the person took a decision based on the advice given by someone else, when he himself was supposed to take the decision. He did not take the decision. He just took the decision based on somebody else's recommendation. That's not what leaders do. Leaders, basically, yes, they consider everybody's recommendation, but they do not solely base their decision on the feedback given by one person. That's not the right thing to do. You have to collectively think about the feedback given by multiple entities, and then you have to come up with an idea or a decision. So that is what decision makers do. And why do they do it? Why are they given the authority to do that? Because they have experience behind their back. They have years of experience, and because of which they are in a position to take the decision. But even then, they have to listen to not just one person, but they have to listen to multiple people. And that's why leadership and decision go hand in hand. Now, last point, true leaders will always inspire their teams to perform well. And this is very critical. If you have a very highly demotivated team, nobody will enjoy working with you. They'll say, what a horrible manager, horrible boss. And they'll start gossiping about you behind your back. I'm not supporting gossiping. Gossiping is anyway bad, but still, that's what happens. So in order to prevent that, you have to be really a good manager. You have to be a good leader. You have to appreciate people for the good things they do. And you have to give feedback. You have to give timely feedback to people when they fail to do certain things that were expected from them. But you have to do it in a very sophisticated, polite, and discreet manner. All right. So let's go to the next one. Quick quiz for you. So a team just got an award. The team has a true leader. Can you spot the leader? I'll give you 10 seconds. Just spot the leader. You don't have to tell anything to me. You don't have to type anything. Just keep it in your mind. I'll just quickly return in 10 seconds or maybe 5. Can you spot the leader? Can you spot the team leader? All right. So many of you, not most of you, many of you may say that the person with those 3 lines looks like that person is the leader. But no, that's not the leader. The person with the arrow on his or her head, that's the leader. Why? Because whenever a team wins, the leader, a true leader, always gives credit to his team. So he'll just let one of his team members, he'll ask the team member to go and receive the award. He'll stand at the back and he'll clap. But when there is a problem, the leader will be at the front. And the leader will be at the front, just like you see here. And the leader will say that, yes, the problem occurred. I am solely responsible. I'll take care of it. And then he'll have a meeting with the team. He'll politely explain what's the problem. He'll not point fingers at anybody, he or she. And then they'll come up with a solution. That's what leaders do. So a true leader will give credit to his team when they do something good. And a true leader will take the blame on himself or herself when the team fails to do something. That's a soft skill that all of us need to acquire. Many of us already have that, so that's great. If you have that, I already congratulate you for that. All right, leadership. You have to be a good facilitator. So back at RK University, when the directors of various departments, schools rather, approached me and they said, Nikhil sir, we want to buy certain types of specialized equipment for our department, for our school. What can you help us facilitate this process? So that time I was working as the associate director. I was in a leadership position. So my job was to facilitate this. And I did. I wrote a research proposal and I shared it with management. There were several meetings, presentations, and after a couple of months, my proposal got approved. Management was kind enough to give us a grant, like intramural grant of 50 lakh, half a crore, $75,000 US. And that's how I did the work of facilitation in the capacity of a in the capacity of a leader. So that's one attribute that all of us should have. We should be good facilitators. Time management. All of us need to, just like I said, you should have short and meaningful meetings. At times, I understand you need to have longer conversations, longer meetings when things are a little bit intricate. That's perfectly fine. But for general purposes, you should try to curb the time. You should have tinier and smaller meetings and more efficient meetings. Now, last point, in order to be a good leader, you also need to be a good mentor. You have to give the right training to your team on a regular basis. You also need to manage virtual teams nowadays. This is a very important skill, and you'll be surprised that many people they are trying to gain. They are not aware of this skill set, but I'm glad all of us are aware of this skill set now that we are seeing it today. I'm sure most of you must have already seen it. Effective project management is also important. If you are the CEO of a company, for example, don't ever try to micromanage. Don't ever try to get too much involved in the tiniest of nitty-gritties. Trust people, bestow trust on people, bestow trust on your employees, and let them do their best. Let them give their best. Steve Jobs, I think once he said, I don't highly rate Steve Jobs. He was not a very good leader. You'll be shocked to hear this, but yes, he was not a very good leader. Because of him, we have this huge problem called China, because he outsourced the manufacturing of Apple iPhones to China, and that's where a lot of problems began. So I don't highly rate Steve Jobs, but nevertheless, I still credit him for this one sentence. And of course, I credit him for Apple iPhone, no doubt. But also for this sentence, you know what he said? There's no point in hiring skilled people and then training them in what to do. It's fine. So what he basically meant to say is, it's okay to train them. There's no problem. But trust them. Let them use their training and their skills that they acquired to build whatever the company wants them to build. That's what he meant to say. All right. So moving on to the next point. You should be able to handle difficult conversations. Again, just like I said, you have to use diplomacy, you have to be discreet, you have to communicate effectively, and that's how you solve difficult problems. If you still have problems that you're not able to solve, you can seek professional help. Employee retention and talent management are very important. Many institutes, they are not able to retain their employees, and that gives rise to a very high attrition rate, meaning almost 30% of the employees, they leave within a year. So that should not be the case. So you have to be a good leader. You have to hire the right people. You have to maintain a good environment, positive environment. You have to retain your employees, keep them happy, appreciate, give feedback. And that's how you achieve progress as a true leader. All right. Let's quickly have a look at this book. And then I think we are nearing the end. Last 10 minutes I'll give you for questions and answers. Let's see some of these tips. We'll quickly go through this. This is a very nice book, by the way. If you want to learn some insider secrets, you should definitely buy this. Steve Siebold, 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class, The Thought Processes, Habits and Philosophies of the Great Ones. A great book. Every tip is about 1 page long. So that's the beauty of this book. You will not spend too much of time going through boring paragraphs. Every tip that you see is not more than 1 page long. At the most 1 or 2 pages long. First tip. First few set of tips. Champions either, we'll go through this quickly because we have only 5 more minutes left, and then 5 or 10 minutes left. Last few minutes I'll reserve for questions and answers. Champions either win or learn, they never fail. World-class leaders enjoy adversity and consider it the ultimate catalyst for mental growth. Now, the first sentence I really like. See, you either win or you learn. You never fail. Because a person who tries never fails. A person who gives up fails. Now, when is this not true? Only under special circumstances. When you are, let's say, working in a highly toxic environment, that time you cannot be there. You have to quit. But that's not called quitting. You're just moving from a negative environment. So I will not apply this definition there. I'll apply this definition only for routine things. So you have to keep trying, and if if you don't win, you'll learn something. All right. Now, don't always motivate your team through logic. You have to motivate them through emotion, and that it's positive emotion, not blackmailing or negative emotion. Positive emotion, namely appreciation and empathy and so forth and so on. Then, if you are a true leader, if you are a true champion, you will never care about who gets the credit. You just get the job done. Just get the work done. You really don't care about who gets the credit. Then world-class performers, what do they do? They always learn and they are open to coaching. Then creativity, if you're a creative person, you cannot be afraid of something. Like you cannot have a really horrible boss running behind you with a stick and then expecting you to be creative. That's not possible. The creative juices, they start flowing only when the environment is very peaceful and nice and encouraging. So that's why as a professional or as an academician or as an administrator, we have to ensure, all of us, including myself, we have to ensure that we provide positive environments to all the stakeholders, including employees and clients, so that everybody is creative. See, what happens is sometimes even clients, they share some very creative feedback. And sometimes entire industries get started because one client bothered to share one feedback in a timely manner. See, that's how things progress. Now, world-class managers, they know that the effort and reward don't go hand in hand. Sometimes you get the compensation years later, but nevertheless, you get it at some point. And finally, just like I said, all great people know the power of conversation. If you communicate well, you can achieve a lot of things in life. All right, next one. Champions love what they do and they prefer being enthusiastic. It's self-explanatory. I don't need to explain that. Then, just like we saw, positive environments need to be created. And never be in the business of protecting your egos. Egos destroy people. Don't ever have ego. Leave ego outside the doorstep when you enter your workplace. Egos will never get you anything. Ego will only get you one thing. It will kind of give you a temporary hormonal high, and then that will be the end of your career, because you will end up burning a lot of bridges. You will end up doing a lot of nasty things. So don't ever have ego when you are working at your workplace. Number one thing to remember. Don't control anybody with their fears. Great achievers. And in fact, if you're afraid of something, go and embrace that thing. Conquer the fear and then get over it. And that's how you become a great world-class leader, a champion. Don't ever live in your past. True leaders, they always focus on the present. A lot of people I come across, they are always thinking about what happened in the past. What happens in the past is a memory. It's dead. You have already distanced it with time. It's gone. It's not there anymore. So if that's the case, why worry about things that are not going to affect you? Even if at some point it has affected you, that is history. And today we are living in the present. So what champions do is they live in the present. And this is a very important soft skill. This is a very important soft skill. To be able to live in the present and to be able to work productively for a better future is a very important soft skill. All of us should have that. All right. The average employee accepts. And if you're a champion, you're a performer, you will question. If you don't question, there is no meaning to life. You always must question. True champions, they enjoy their work and they have fun at work. I mean, not fun as in playing cricket at work, but they enjoy what they're doing and they do what they enjoy. And then the weak can never forgive. But here's a smart suggestion. It's okay to forgive the person, and forgiveness is the attitude of the strong. But I would add something to it. Forgive, but don't forget. Why? I'm giving you a very practical solution, a practical suggestion. Why? Why should you not forget? Because you know that when a person is of a certain type, then next time you have to be careful when you deal with that person, because at the back of the mind, you know that the person is likely to make such a mistake. So you have to keep it at the back of your mind. Don't have a grudge. Don't have ego issues. Don't behave rudely with the person, but have it at the back of your mind. So all clever managers, they always do that. They'll forgive, but they'll remember, हाँ, इसका ये problem है. So next time when handling this person, they'll remember that इस problem को कैसे ध्यान में रख के how you can deal with the person. So that's what I'm trying to communicate here. All right. then, then here, champions believe in all these great qualities. This video is going to be posted to YouTube, so you can always go and check it. All right. Then great managers have dreams, but they are not delusional. Then world-class leaders consider mistakes as company assets. They should be recorded. Why are mistakes assets? Because if you record the mistakes, you will know what exactly to avoid in the future. And that's why they are company assets. Then you should not constantly try to seek the approval of others. It's not required. See, when somebody asks me, why do you like to do these things? I say, I like to do these things because I enjoy doing these things. These things bring meaning to my life. I find them meaningful and engaging, and I want to make a meaningful contribution as long as I'm there on planet Earth. And these things keep me motivated. That's why I do these things. I don't do these things because I want an award, or because I want a citation, or because I want a publication, or because I want a patent, or because I want some increase in my salary. No, I do it because I feel like doing it. It gives me pleasure, and that's why I do it. And that's how all of us should behave. Like, we should not be in the business of seeking constant approval. Then once in a while, you have to seek solitude to recharge your minds. Professional achievers, they always spot opportunities, and champions, they always praise others lavishly. Then great managers know how to program their teams. Champions, they always respond, amateurs react. But I would go a step ahead and say, don't just respond. Try to, make a meaningful contribution. Express yourself intelligently by listening to others well. Amateurs always simplify. Amateurs always try to complicate simple things. And don't forget the last point. All of us should have a fantastic sense of humor. I make it a point to include funny things in my presentations all the time, because that's how people remain engaged. And this is a very important skill set. Having a sense of humor is a very important soft skill that all of us must have. I'm sure many of us have it. All right, we have only a few minutes left, so quickly let me go through the other slides. They are self-explanatory, so I don't need to explain too much. Just pay attention to the points, and you will immediately know what I'm talking about. You have to be able to manage stress effectively. Then you have to show basic courtesy, cooperate with all your team members. You have to feel enthusiastic. You have to be friendly. You have to be approachable, and you have to be patient. And last but not the least, you have to show respect for others. If you want others to respect you, you have to learn to respect others. So that's exactly how you maintain positivity. Teamwork. Now, this is one more very important skill set. Are you open to feedback? Many people I know, they say that they are so trained and they are so experienced that they are no longer accepting feedback. And that's not a good thing. No matter how old or experienced or great you are, you should still be open to feedback. If Nobel laureates are open to feedback, if CEOs are open to feedback, then all of us should definitely be open to feedback. It is very important. So being open to feedback is a very important skill, soft skill, and this soft skill can help you build and retain your team. All right. Then can you initiate meaningful conversations? This is also again important. Meaningful collaborations, because nowadays many of the things are done through collaboration. So you should be able to do that. Are you aware of diversity and disabilities? So you have people from various cultures working at your place. So you have to be aware of diversity. If anybody is physically disabled, you have to provide the right seating arrangement. So you have to be aware of those things. Then are you emotionally intelligent? Are you emotionally intelligent? So just like I said, your IQ will get you the job opportunity, but it's your EQ that will give you the promotion, that will virtually guarantee the promotion for you. Do you have empathy? Like, do you feel something for others? Do you have cross-cultural awareness? You should also have social skills, and you should know what is small talk. What is a small talk? So small talk is some tiny conversation that you have before you start your work, or sometime during your daily schedule. Yeah, like, so you come across a colleague and say, hi, hey, what's up, how's it going, how's the coffee? I generally prefer drinking milk because coffee can be kind of bad for your health. and milk provides calcium, whereas coffee takes out the calcium from your bones. Now suddenly don't start giving him or her medical advice. But jokes apart, you can have a casual, non-controversial conversation, and that's what I mean by small talk. If you can't think of anything, just try to discuss the weather. Like they say, this is a very famous saying in Great Britain. If there's nothing much to talk about, just discuss the weather. Like it's such a nice weather today, outside today, or such a bad weather today. In India, luckily, we have great weather, unlike what they have in Seattle. Seattle is mainly cloudy more than 300 days per year. So luckily in India, that's not the case. All right, can you do meaningful networking? Very good critical skill. You should don't network with like random people just because you want to show that on LinkedIn you have 1,000 followers. People network with people that can bring meaning to your business or a company or whatever you're doing. Then do you know how to build a great team? That's also a very important asset. Now lastly, do you have social skills? So social skills, they are not the same as Facebook skills. Just because you get 10,000 likes on Facebook doesn't mean that you have great social skills. There are many people who get great huge number of likes on Facebook and they actually lack social skills, and that's why actually they are on Facebook. I'm happy to say that I'm not on Facebook. Yes, you heard me right. I'm happy to say that I'm not on Facebook. Yet I have the right requisite skill sets, the required social skills with me. And I'm not saying this, colleagues working with me have said this. What I do is when my family requests me to see something on Facebook, I quickly log into Facebook, check it, then I deactivate my account. And that's why I am technically not there on Facebook 99% of the times. Yet I have the right social skills with me. All right. Work ethic. You have to be honest. You have to exhibit compliance with standard practices. You have to be dedicated, self-motivated, and trustworthy. See, if you are trustworthy, you will get a lot of things done. If people lose trust in you, nothing much can be achieved. Then again, you have to be results oriented. You have to be resilient. You have to be very persistent. So let's say you're trying to work hard on a project. You have to ensure that you stay there, and you have to show some resilience, and you have to constantly pursue till you achieve some goal. You have to plan systematically. You have to maintain your competitiveness. Just like you're attending this webinar today, you have to maintain your competitiveness by upgrading your skill sets. And just like you're doing today, all of us have to do that. Of course, you have to be punctual, well organized, and you have to meet deadlines. And about deadlines, what I saw something very interesting. Whenever we organize conferences, we see when the last date, the deadline is 30th of April, people usually register on the 29th of April or on the 30th of April at 11:30 p.m. Why? I don't know why. If the deadline is 30th of April, it does not mean that you have to register on 30th of April. It means that you can register any time on or before or even much before 30th of April. And many people have this tendency, not just with event registrations, even with project deadlines. What is the deadline? 30th of April. So let's try to postpone and let's try to dance and enjoy till that time. And on 30th of April at 11:59, I'll submit my results. Don't do that. You can always submit it much before that. All right, couple of slides more. Teamwork is good, but at times you have to work independently. You should be able to multitask, and you have to maintain good work-life balance. One person, किसी ने मुझे एक बार बताया, somebody told me once that I work 12 hours every day. So I told him this very interesting joke. One colleague told the other colleague that I regularly work for 12 hours every day. The other colleague said to him that whatever work I do in 8 hours, you take 12 hours to do. I'm sorry to say that. But now tell me, who is more efficient, you or me? Very, very clever reply. And that's a very appropriate reply. See, don't overwork so much. Don't overwork so much that you end up getting type 2 diabetes, blood pressure, and all those things. You have to have good work-life balance. Because if you overwork, it's unfair to your family. It's unfair to your children. It's unfair to the elderly. So you have to maintain the right, and of course to your spouse and other people. So you have to maintain the right work-life balance. Now let's quickly go through some miscellaneous soft skills. We have a couple of minutes left, 2-3 minutes, and then I'll open up the forum to questions. Do you know, can you identify unprofessional behavior? Just like I said, if you see something, say something. You have to know what are the legal implications if you behave unethically, and are you aware of safety related issues. So for example, if there is a health hazard in a laboratory, you have to identify it. If something poses a danger, or there is a safety hazard, you have to see what are the things that you can do to prevent bad things from happening. You have to see what are the legal implications if something bad happens. Like for example, when I was working as a teaching assistant, they told me to monitor students, and they told me to ensure that they are wearing their safety goggles during their chemistry experiments, because if they fail to do so, they may end up losing their eyesight. So that's what I mean by compliance, and we have to make sure you abide by those things. All right, a few other things, like, do you know what your customers are trying to tell you? Do you know how to avoid gender bias? So in my presentations, I always say he or she, because if I say he, all the women will be unhappy. If I say she, all the men will be unhappy. So I always say he or she. Then you have to avoid discrimination based on religion, caste, ethnicity, skin color, hair color, nail color, whatever color, So don't discriminate people based on any of these things. Value people for their skills, value people for their attributes, not for their genetics and other things, and caste and religion. Doesn't matter what the caste is. I have friends from so many different religions and castes. I never see at anybody's religion. I respect all the religions, and I basically value people for their great qualities, not for their religion and other things. I have respect for all religions. So everybody should do that. Then, are you sensitive to ergonomic requirements? Like, what is ergonomic requirement? Let's say somebody needs a specialized chair because their back is paining. So you have to provide that. That is what is meant by ergonomic sensitivity. And last but not the least, do you have the right interviewing skills? Now, interviewing means both. If you are giving an interview and if you are like taking an interview, taking someone's interview. So you have to recruit the right people. You have to, retain them. All right. So quickly, let's summarize. What all did we learn today? Effective communication, critical analysis, leadership, positivity, teamwork, work ethic, and a few other miscellaneous but nevertheless important soft skills. So I think that brings us to the end of today's webinar. And now I'm opening this forum to questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to share with me, and I'll try my best to address them. Thank you. Thanks for your time. And let's discuss a few things. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Participants can unmute themselves and they can ask the questions directly. No questions? Sir, everything understood.
Okay, I'm glad. If you even have questions later on, you can try to reach us in some possible way. And I really thank Nikhat Madam. I thank all of you for giving me this opportunity. Even
Sir, please share your contact number and mail ID.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll email it to Nikhat Madam, or I can just tell it to you right now. My contact number is 9099 21082. 9099 and my email ID is dr.nikhil.gokhale, dr.nikhil.gokhale, dr.nikhil.gokhale @gmail.com.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Right. Welcome.
Any questions, or we will wind up the session?
Okay, ma'am. Let me ask one question. Whether it is relevant or not, I have no idea. Good morning, sir, Dr. Nikhil.
Yeah,
Sir,
yeah,
Nikhil,
yes, yes,
Sir,
please go.
uh, as you asked, somewhere some meetings, during some meeting, the authority used to give some, or maybe they tried to dominate the meeting, or they tried to give some kind of negative remark on in public, which is not acceptable, you told.
Yes.
My question in that sense, what the audience should do. I mean, let me once again repeat. Let's say the authority is misbehaving, or the authority is not, going on the right track. What he or she should do. So in that case, what the respondent or what the other people should do. I mean, should they respond, or should they polite, or should they rude, or should they leave the meeting, or what they should do.
Yeah, so let me answer this question. This is a very important question. See, the way to handle these kind of tricky situations is as follows. So let's say there is a person who is talking very negatively, and the person is trying to insult some other person. So what that other person is trying to do is he or she is trying to evoke a response from that person. He's trying to evoke, rather not a response, but an angry reaction from that person. And if you very calmly express what you did and why you did it and what was the logic behind that, and then if you realize that yes, genuinely it's somebody's mistake, the person can say, yes, I agree that it was my mistake, but the thought process was as follows. If you say this very calmly and gently, and you'll be surprised, even with a smile, the person who gives the negative remark, the next time the person will be scared to actually yell at the person, because he'll say, oh my god, no matter how much I yelled at this person, he very calmly answered the question, answered it in a genuine way, even smiled at the end, and showed confidence. Whether or not to smile is up to you. It's I would leave that up to you, depending on the scenario and the environment. But what I'm essentially trying to say is, don't ever give an angry reaction. That is point number one. But if you see that regardless of the efforts that you're taking, even if you're taking consistent efforts to show that you're trying to do your work, and you are being incorrectly identified as a wrongdoer, although you're not doing anything wrong, it means that you're working in a toxic environment, and you have to start looking for other employment opportunities. So plan A, try to resolve using very peaceful negotiation techniques. Do something behind the curtain, like for example, you can try to meet the person, explain your rationale after the meeting, so that next time the person will not do this. If all of these things fail, then you can try moving on. But those are the essentially two things, plan A
I
and
agree
plan
with you
B.
with the second part of your answer, because first part, even I have observed, this is what I have experienced, that's what I'm telling. So I have
Okay.
seen the person, even the other respondents are politely answering, but the person is still trying to create a negative thought out of the same. I mean, as you
Yes.
told, I mean, his intention is just to, just to bring you somewhere in a negative situation.
Show you in a bad light. Right, right.
Yes.
Yes. So then I
I've
would
seen
go ahead and
somewhere
say,
when the authority is asking, so why
yeah.
not your camera is adjusted properly? And that too not one time, within a meeting of 1 hour, it's around 25 times.
Okay. Oh my God. Then I would say, I would immediately give this advice to you, that it immediately means that there is something critically wrong with the person. And if the person is trying to make a false accusation, it's time to move on. So I would rather suggest the person.
I want to just extend this question again. So, but
Yeah.
in the same situation, some people
Yeah.
are there, those who are very polite follower of him. I mean, say for example, the authority,
Uh,
he has hold few people, those who are saying, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, sir, sorry, sir, yes, sir. I mean, this
yeah.
kind of people are there nearby him.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
whereas, let's say I'm new to the system, I have not acquainted with
Yeah.
this kind of fashion, so I'm feeling it very
Okay.
awkward. I'm saying, what kind of behavior this fellow is talking about?
Yes,
But
yes, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. So see, just like I said, what you have to do is you have to exhaust all your possibilities. You have to ask yourself, will you be in a position to be like the other people and constantly say yes sir, for the next 3 to 6 months, or will it affect your health? will you get adversely, will you get any issues, blood pressure and those things, tension, stress because of that? Ask yourself, just go, do some inspection, and if the answer is yes, then I would say go to plan B and start seeking for a new employment. If the answer is no, then you can just try to adjust, although I would personally not recommend that, because people who are that negative are unlikely to change. Having said that, I would still say give it a shot. Try to see if you can be like the other people and bear with a grin on your face. But if not, I would say it's time to move on.
Yes, sir. I found somebody of us, I mean, our team, he has rudely answered the question. The authority asked, better you search for, so you are not doing the job properly. He told, so probably I'm not the best fit for this organization.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there are various ways. Just like I said, if you genuinely think it's your mistake, you can say, yes, I admit that this is a mistake, but this was the rationale. And we all mistakes, so make mistakes. I'll make sure I'll keep this in my mind next time. But say it very politely. If you say it like this 1 or 2 times, and also make sure there are no mistakes, there is no reason for the person to yell. And if he or she still continues,
I guess
then
I'm not fully
clearly
agree.
there's a
Why?
problem.
The expectation from that person is quite high. I mean, he's saying on the day beginning, let's say
Yeah.
on the day beginning, you should bring 2 crores of project. Why not? You have already worked for 7 days. It's too long time. You have already
Yeah.
crossed your honeymoon period, and that kind of word he's using. So
Okay.
1 week is sufficient enough. You bring a project of 2 crores. Why it is taking a long time?
Yeah. So see, just like I said, you have to ask yourself the question: will you be able to do it within that time frame? Is it even logically possible, or even is it practically possible? If the answer is yes, give it your best shot. If the answer is no, then clearly it's not a good work environment, and you have to move on.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your suggestions.
All right, welcome. You're welcome.
Sir, I have one.
Yeah.
To say some of
Yeah.
your slides, you mentioned that listening is very, very important.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? I was not able to hear you.
Listening is one of the important skills a leader, a characteristic or a skill a leader must possess.
Did you say
Uh,
reasoning?
Listening. He's saying listening is
Listening, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's correct.
I listen to people when they speak something of
Sir, Joe, sir, your voice is breaking, sir.
what is working.
Hello, sir, your voice is breaking, sir. Daniel, sir.
Okay, madam, you carry on, madam, no problem. We'll talk later.
Now you can speak, sir.
Yeah. So I can listen to the people when they speak something of the topic of it's out of my interest. My mind just shuts back. I'm able to listen to them. My mind start thinking of something else. So how to overcome and how to improve the listening ability further?
I'm sorry. I think I could not hear the first part of the question. Nikhil, ma'am, can you maybe ask him to type it? I was not able to hear the question.
Sir, you can just type in the chat box, sir. Hello, sir. Please type your question in the chat box, sir. I will read out.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Meanwhile, any other questions?
I am unable to listen to the people who speaks anything out of my interest. Sir, this is his question, sir.
Okay. So, do you mean to say that you don't feel interested when people are speaking about something that is outside your domain of knowledge? like I did like what's your question? Like you don't want them to speak, or like can you elaborate the question? I read the description, but what's your
Yes.
question?
Sir is saying that mind is not supporting. I am unable to listen to the people who speaks anything out of my interest. Then he has written, mind is not supporting.
Acha, like, can you give an example of what, like, for example, okay, let's not take the example. So, see, what happens is many times people speak on different areas. So, let's say I'm an expert in a certain area. That's my specialization. Some person sits in front of me and starts speaking about, something else, like classical Chinese music in which I have no interest, or, Japanese something else. So, would I feel interested? Clearly not. But then you have to see, why is this person speaking about that there? Do you think that's a meaningful contribution, or do you think you're spending your time meaningfully? If not, there are certain ways of cutting short the conversation. For example, at the end of a particular sentence, you can say, "Oh, is it? Wow, that's really interesting. You know what? I'm a little busy right now. Is it okay if we discuss this later?" And then you can exit and go elsewhere. Or you can use some diplomatic strategy so that the person also does not feel offended, as well as your work is done. So you don't spend time in listening to unnecessary things in which you have no interest, as well as the person does not feel offended, right? So you have to sometimes use diplomacy. Just say, okay, acha aisa hai kya? Acha, Japanese music, okay, wow, great, fantastic, I'm a little busy right now, can we talk later? So the person will get the point. He's trying to, he or she is trying to tell you something in which you have no interest, but at the same time person will now not be offended. So essay, if you handle it diplomatically, na, you will not come across problematic situations.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
All right, welcome. Any other questions?
Okay, if there is no questions, then we will end the session. Nikhil sir, thank you once again.
Thank you, Nikat madam, and thanks for the warm invite.
We'll see you once again, sir.
Always a pleasure. And thanks to B.S. Abdul Rahman Christian Institute of Science and Technology for the invitation. Thanks, Nikat madam. And thanks to all the participants for your time. Have a good day. Stay safe.
Thank you, sir. Kripa Shankar sir, I think you're online, right, sir?